Hey there, welcome back. I'm all cozied up in my little Minecraft world, stacking blocks and sipping something warm while we dive into some messy, maddening stories from the depths of Reddit. Tonight's stories? They're soaked in betrayal, revenge, and those perfectly timed karma moments that feel just a little too satisfying. So let's start with a wild one. She went to her ex's birthday and didn't even tell her boyfriend. The audacity is breathtaking, and honestly, it still makes me shake my head. Like, how do you mess up something so basic and think there won't be consequences? And trust me, that's just the opening drama. From sneaky coworkers to manipulative roommates, tonight's stories prove one thing again and again. They wrote their own downfall without even realizing it. Let's jump into it, starting with the story of a guy who only found out where his girlfriend had been after the party was already over. So, a few weeks ago, I'm scrolling through Instagram on a lazy Sunday afternoon. Nothing major going on. Just one of those chill days where you catch up on memes, overshare your coffee, and watch your friends slowly lose their minds over brunch. I wasn't looking for drama. I really wasn't. But that's the thing about betrayal. It usually shows up when you least expect it. There it was, a tagged photo from someone I didn't follow, but it popped up because my girlfriend was in it. She was smiling, holding a red solo cup, standing next to a guy I recognized immediately, her ex. I paused for a second, blinked, zoomed in. Yep, no mistake. It was his birthday based on the caption, the balloon arch in the background, and the massive Happy 30th Ryan sign that made it painfully clear. Now here's the kicker. I hadn't heard a single word about this party. Not in passing conversation, not as a casual mention, not even a, hey, I ran into my ex on Instagram today, and apparently his birthday's coming up. Nothing. Radio silence. And we just had dinner together the night before. Homemade pasta, wine, a dumb rom-com. The whole vibe. Not a word. So I bring it up. Casually at first. Hey, I saw that photo of you from that party last night. Looked fun. She freezes for a half second. That split second of recognition before the performance starts. Then she shrugs and says, oh yeah, it was just a few people. Totally last minute, right? Totally last minute with a balloon arch and printed photo booth props. I wasn't born yesterday. I try to stay calm. You didn't think to mention it? She sips her water, not meeting my eye. I mean, it didn't seem like a big deal. We're just friends now. Now, here's something about me. I'm not the jealous type. I'm really not. You can have guy friends, you can have exes who are vaguely still in your orbit. But if you're hiding things, especially this kind of thing, that's not, it's not a big deal territory. That's, why didn't you say anything? Territory. So I tell her that. I say, it's not about the party. It's that you didn't tell me. That you thought you had to hide it. And that's when it starts. She gets defensive, says I'm overreacting, says I'm trying to control her. Suddenly, I'm the villain in this story for not being chill enough about the fact that she went to her ex's party without telling me. But that wasn't even the worst part. Over the next few days, things got weird. I could feel her pulling away. Less texting, less physical affection. That quiet distance people put up when they know they've messed up but don't want to admit it. I didn't push. I figured maybe she needs space. Maybe she'll come around and talk to me like an adult. 1 week later, we're sitting in her car after dinner and she blurts it out. Just like that. I didn't tell you about the party because I knew you'd make it weird. She says it with that tone, like I'm some emotionally volatile maniac instead of a person just asking for basic transparency. I blink. So you hid it from me on purpose? She nods and then actually smiles, like she's proud of figuring out how to dodge the drama. That's called managing expectations, she says. Managing expectations, like she was handling a toddler with a temper instead of a relationship built on mutual respect. That was the moment. That exact sentence. I didn't yell. I didn't storm off. I just sat there looking at her and realized this wasn't going to get better. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was who she was. Someone who would rather lie by omission and blame you for reacting than actually communicate. So I said, thanks for being honest. I'm done. She looked shocked, like I wasn't supposed to actually walk away. Like the lie was forgivable because it came with a smug little lesson about expectation management. But I got out of the car, walked away, blocked her on Instagram so I wouldn't have to see any more surprise parties. Texted my roommate that I was coming home early, and that was that. No dramatic text, no grand apologies, just quiet, clean closure. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're just as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Subscribe, and let's suffer through more of this together. Because the truth is, when someone shows you how little they value your trust, believe them the first time. Don't wait around for more proof. You already have enough. Sometimes the real betrayal isn't the party. It's how easily someone thinks they can lie to your face and get away with it. But betrayal doesn't always come from a party invite. Sometimes it starts at your own job. I've had some rough relationships, but nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to what I went through with my ex, Rachel. From the outside, everything probably looked normal. We'd been together a year and a half, lived together for almost 6 months, and even talked about getting a dog. You know, normal couple stuff. But under the surface, Rachel had this thing. This quiet obsession with control that I chalked up to quirky at first. You know how it goes. Oh, she's just a little anxious, or she just cares a lot. Number. She cared, all right, about making sure I never had a life outside of her. It started small like it always does. My manager at the coffee shop I worked at pulled me aside and said someone had left a pretty nasty review calling me rude and creepy. The kicker? It described me perfectly. What I was wearing that day, the exact shift hours, stuff no random customer could have guessed unless they had surveillance footage or were standing 3 feet away. At the time, I brushed it off. I mean, the internet's wild, right? Maybe it was some overdramatic customer. Or maybe they confused me with someone else. But it didn't stop there. Next job. I worked at this local bookstore. Chill vibes, decent pay, cool co-workers. About 2 weeks in, I started hearing whispers from the manager. He wouldn't say much, but he hinted that someone had emailed a complaint about me. Then a second one. The final straw came when someone filed a report to corporate HR, accusing me of making threatening comments to a female customer. Only problem? That day, I was working in the back, restocking shelves. I hadn't even seen a customer, so yeah, I got fired. The weird part? Rachel wasn't even that sympathetic. She made the usual noises. That sucks, babe, and people are just crazy. But she didn't really seem surprised or upset. If anything, it almost looked like she was relieved. Still, I didn't connect the dots. Because who even thinks to suspect their own girlfriend is trying to sabotage them? But that wasn't even the worst part. It kept happening. I'd get a new job, retail, warehouse, even tried working in food delivery. Something would go wrong. An anonymous complaint. A bizarre accusation. Once someone claimed I had stolen from the register, which was wild because I never even touched the register at that job. It got so bad I started wondering if I was cursed. Like, seriously. I thought maybe I had some karmic cloud following me around. But then came the breaking point. Rachel went out of town for the weekend to visit her sister. I stayed back, mostly because I was between jobs again, thanks to another random firing. I was bored and decided to use her laptop to check the weather since my phone was charging in the other room. She'd left it open on the kitchen table, and I figured, whatever, it's just the weather. But her tabs were open, and one of them was a spreadsheet. It was titled Work Log Control. I remember sitting there for a second, blinking, like I was trying to convince myself it was a budgeting sheet or something. But I clicked, and my blood ran cold. It was a full spreadsheet tracking every single job I'd had over the past year. Each row had dates, company names, managers' names, how she got those I still don't know, and outcome notes. Submitted complaint on Yelp. Result, termination. Filed HR complaint using burner email. Manager suspicious, no termination yet. Next, escalate with customer complaint. She'd color-coded it. Color-coded. I scrolled in disbelief down row after row of her little sabotage campaign. She had a literal checklist of when I was supposed to get fired. I closed the laptop and just sat there. You ever get so angry your body goes completely still? Like your muscles lock up and your brain short circuits trying to process what you just saw? Yeah, that was me. Then I did something that probably saved me in the long run. I didn't confront her. Instead, I took photos of everything. Every tab, every email draft she had open, every message where she bragged to her friend about how he'll have to rely on me soon, LOL. That was the moment it clicked. She wasn't just trying to ruin my job life. She was trying to isolate me, to make me financially dependent on her. She'd gotten off on being the one with control, the one with stability. Every time she brought me dinner after I got fired or helped me rewrite my resume, it was part of the game. The sympathy was a costume, and here's where it gets absurd. I backed up the files to a drive, emailed them to myself, and packed a bag that night. Didn't even wait for her to come home. I left a note on the counter that said, "I know everything. Don't contact me." Then I blocked her on everything. But of course, she did try to contact me. Through friends, through fake numbers, even through my mum. But the real kicker, she tried to sue me for accessing her personal computer without consent. Which, okay, bold move considering the spreadsheet, literally showed her admitting to criminal defamation and harassment. So I lawyered up. I showed the evidence to an attorney and, get this, he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so damning. He said, if she actually wants to take this to court, we'll walk out with her paying you damages. She dropped the lawsuit 2 weeks later. I'm still recovering, financially and emotionally. It's weird how long it takes to rebuild your life when someone's been secretly trying to dismantle it piece by piece. But I've got a stable job now, an apartment of my own, and no spreadsheets tracking my employment. The whole thing still messes with my head, like, how do you live with someone who hates you that quietly, that thoroughly? The worst part of manipulation isn't the dramatic outbursts. It's the calm, calculated effort to break someone without raising suspicion. She didn't scream, she didn't hit. She just took things from me until I had nothing left. And people wonder why I'm a little hesitant to date now. This girl was playing the long game and somehow still lost. Sometimes the best revenge really is just giving someone enough rope to hang themselves. But sometimes it's not your partner trying to destroy you. It's your own family. My parents always said they were putting aside a wedding fund for me. Not a massive trust fund level deal, but something they'd been saving over the years. Birthday money, graduation gifts, little top-ups from holidays, all quietly tucked away for the big day. They'd mention it once in a while, like, when you get married, don't worry, we've got you covered. And I'd smile and nod, thinking it was one of those nice parental gestures that you never actually call in until it really matters. Well, turns out it mattered, because I got engaged. My fiancé and I had been together for 3 years, and we finally decided it was time to start planning. Nothing over the top, nothing extravagant, just a simple wedding with our families, close friends, and hopefully minimal drama. We'd set a budget, made a spreadsheet, started looking at venues. Naturally, I thought, hey, time to ask my parents about the wedding fund. So I gave them a call, super casual, just checking in. Hey, remember that wedding fund you always mentioned? We're starting to plan, and it'd help us figure out the budget if we knew what we had to work with. There was a pause. Then my mum laughed a little too hard. Oh, honey. Yeah, about that. That's never how you want a sentence to start. She starts dancing around the topic, and I can already tell something's off. My dad chimes in and says, we actually gave it to your brother a while back. I blinked. What? To help him out, he adds. He was going through a tough time, and we figured you two would be fine without it. Now, I love my brother, I really do, but the guy's a walking disaster. He's made a career out of bad decisions, dropped out of college, went through 3 jobs in 2 years, and more recently, picked up gambling. The tough time they mentioned, that was him racking up thousands in online sports betting debt. I tried to stay calm. So, how much are we talking about here? My mum replied, oh, maybe around $18,000. It wasn't all the savings, but that was the majority of it, $18,000. Just like that. Gone. Without telling me. Without asking. Just given away to my brother because apparently he needed it more. Then came the breaking point. I asked flat out, why didn't you at least tell me? Even just to say the money was gone. My dad got defensive. We didn't think it was a big deal. You've always been more responsible. We figured you'd make it work. And that's when I realized they didn't see it as betrayal. They saw it as practical. Like I was the safe bet, and my brother was the wild card they had to keep bailing out. Except this time, they didn't just hand him a lifeline. They took mine and threw it in his direction without a second thought. So I said, that wasn't your money to give away. And my mom had the nerve to say, it's not like we legally promised it to you. Sometimes being the responsible one means you get punished for not being a walking disaster. My fiancée, to her credit, was livid on my behalf. She kept asking, "How are you not more upset?" But I think I was too numb to really process it. Like, how do you even argue with people who don't think what they did was wrong? But that wasn't even the worst part. A few days later, my brother calls me, totally casual, and says, "Hey, Mum told me you were mad about the money." Chill out, man. It's not like you needed it, I swear. I almost dropped the phone. Then he says, "Besides, it was either that or I'd have lost the car." Or worse, and he says it like I should feel guilty. Like it's my fault he got in over his head and our parents bailed him out using my future. I didn't even respond. I just hung up. That night I sat down with my fiancée and we had a real talk. Like, deep, uncomfortable honesty. I told her I didn't think I could have my parents at the wedding. That I couldn't imagine standing there, saying vows, and looking out at the people who actively chose to undermine our future. She didn't even hesitate. Then we don't invite them. And just like that, we decided to go no contact. No dramatic blow-up, no screaming matches, just silence. I sent them a final message that said, "I hope you understand why I can't have you at the wedding. This wasn't about money, it was about trust, and you broke it." They never replied. We downsized the wedding, paid for everything ourselves, and honestly, it turned out better than we imagined. It was intimate, meaningful, and 100% free of guilt-tripping relatives and family drama. Everyone who showed up wanted to be there, and that meant more than anything money could have bought. At times, the biggest win is simply cutting out the people who keep choosing chaos. They really handed my brother a shovel and let him dig both our graves. They just didn't expect me to walk away from mine. Speaking of weddings, wait until you hear what happened 2 days before this bride's ceremony. My parents always said they were putting aside a wedding fund for me. Not a massive trust fund level deal, but something they'd been saving over the years. Birthday money, graduation gifts, little top-ups from holidays, all quietly tucked away for the big day. They'd mention it once in a while like, "When you get married, don't worry, we've got you covered." And I'd smile and nod, thinking it was one of those nice parental gestures that you never actually call in until it really matters. Well, turns out it mattered, because I got engaged. My fiancée and I had been together for 3 years, and we finally decided it was time to start planning. Nothing over the top, nothing extravagant. Just a simple wedding with our families, close friends, and hopefully minimal drama. We'd set a budget, made a spreadsheet, started looking at venues. Naturally, I thought, hey, time to ask my parents about the wedding fund. So I gave them a call, super casual, just checking in. "Hey, remember that wedding fund you always mentioned? We're starting to plan, and it'd help us figure out the budget if we knew what we had to work with." There was a pause. Then my mom laughed a little too hard. "Oh, honey. Yeah, about that. That's never how you want a sentence to start." She starts dancing around the topic, and I can already tell something's off. My dad chimes in and says, "We actually gave it to your brother a while back." I blinked. "What?" "To help him out," he adds. "He was going through a tough time, and we figured you two would be fine without it." Now, I love my brother. I really do. But the guy's a walking disaster. He's made a career out of bad decisions, dropped out of college, went through 3 jobs in 2 years, and more recently, picked up gambling. The tough time they mentioned, that was him racking up thousands in online sports betting debt. I tried to stay calm. "So, how much are we talking about here?" My mom replied, "Oh, maybe around $18,000? It wasn't all the savings, but that was the majority of it, $18,000, just like that. Gone, without telling me, without asking. Just given away to my brother because, apparently, he needed it more." Then came the breaking point. I asked, flat out, "Why didn't you at least tell me? Even just to say the money was gone?" My dad got defensive. "We didn't think it was a big deal. You've always been more responsible. We figured you'd make it work." And that's when I realized they didn't see it as betrayal. They saw it as practical. Like I was the safe bet, and my brother was the wild card they had to keep bailing out. Except this time, they didn't just hand him a lifeline. They took mine and threw it in his direction without a second thought. So I said, "That wasn't your money to give away." And my mom had the nerve to say, "It's not like we legally promised it to you." Sometimes being the responsible one means you get punished for not being a walking disaster. My fiancée, to her credit, was livid on my behalf. She kept asking, "How are you not more upset?" But I think I was too numb to really process it. Like, how do you even argue with people who don't think what they did was wrong? But that wasn't even the worst part. A few days later, my brother calls me, totally casual, and says, "Hey, Mum told me you were mad about the money. Chill out, man. It's not like you needed it, I swear. I almost dropped the phone." Then he says, "Besides, it was either that or I'd have lost the car." Or worse, and he says it like I should feel guilty. Like it's my fault he got in over his head and our parents bailed him out, using my future. I didn't even respond. I just hung up. That night I sat down with my fiancée and we had a real talk. Like, deep, uncomfortable honesty. I told her I didn't think I could have my parents at the wedding. That I couldn't imagine standing there, saying vows and looking out at the people who actively chose to undermine our future. She didn't even hesitate. Then we don't invite them. And just like that, we decided to go no contact. No dramatic blow-up, no screaming matches, just silence. I sent them a final message that said, "I hope you understand why I can't have you at the wedding. This wasn't about money, it was about trust, and you broke it." They never replied. We downsized the wedding, paid for everything ourselves, and honestly, it turned out better than we imagined. It was intimate, meaningful, and 100% free of guilt-tripping relatives and family drama. Everyone who showed up wanted to be there, and that meant more than anything money could have bought. The biggest win is simply cutting out the people who keep choosing chaos. They really handed my brother a shovel and let him dig both our graves. They just didn't expect me to walk away from mine. Speaking of weddings, wait until you hear what happened 2 days before this bride's ceremony. 2 days before my wedding, 2 days, I got a message from my best friend, Jason. It was 3:06 a.m. I remember the time because I happened to be awake, going over the table settings on my laptop, way too wired to sleep. My phone buzzed with a long, rambling wall of text. At first, I thought it was a drunk good luck message, or maybe something sweet and nostalgic. It wasn't. It started with, "Please read this before you get married," and then it spiraled into something I never expected. A full-on confession. Jason, and my best friend since college, the guy who helped me move 3 times and once drove 4 hours to pick me up when my car died, said he was in love with me. Had been for years. Claimed he was too scared to say anything before, but now that the wedding was so close, he couldn't hold it in anymore. I just sat there, blinking at the screen. Like, what was I supposed to do with that? Frame it? And here's where it gets absurd. Because he didn't just confess. He begged me to leave my fiancée, said we had better chemistry, and that he knew me more intimately than anyone else. He even said we were meant to end up together. Your fiancé doesn't get you like I do. I don't know what kind of rom-com Jason thought he was living in, but let me be clear. I had never, ever given him a single reason to think we were anything more than friends. Not once. He knew about my fiancée from the beginning. He was there when we started dating. He helped me pick out birthday gifts for him. And now, out of nowhere, he wanted me to burn my relationship to the ground. For him, I couldn't wrap my head around it. The message ended with, "I'll be at the wedding unless you ask me not to." But I had to try. I didn't even reply that night. I just stared at the ceiling, trying not to cry. Not because I was tempted, but because I felt betrayed. 2 days before one of the biggest days of my life, someone I trusted tried to turn it into his story. People think timing is romantic, when really it's just manipulative. The next morning I told my fiancé, I didn't want secrets, especially not this one. He read the message and just shook his head, then said, "Do you want him there?" And that was the moment I realized, no, I absolutely did not. So I messaged Jason back. I kept it short. "I'm sorry you've been carrying this, but telling me now was incredibly unfair. Please don't come to the wedding." He read it. No reply. Then came the breaking point. That night he texted again, a novel this time. Said I was cold, and that my response proved he was right not to tell me sooner. That if I really loved my fiancée, his message wouldn't have bothered me. That's when I blocked him. The wedding went on without him, and you know what? It was beautiful. We danced, we laughed, we said our vows in front of people who supported us, not people secretly hoping we'd fall apart. And the entire time, I didn't think about Jason once. Well, okay, maybe once. When we cut the cake and I thought, yeah, this would have been his moment to awkwardly say something in front of everyone. Dodged a bullet there. Sometimes losing a friend hurts, but sometimes it's just relief. Like a weight you didn't realize you were carrying suddenly disappears. Jason wasn't in love. He was obsessed with the idea of being chosen, and when I didn't pick him, he folded. No, let's talk. No, I'm sorry I messed up your week. Just guilt and gaslighting, the mental gymnastics this guy pulled to make his feelings. My problem? Olympic level. But some friends don't ruin your wedding. They just ruin your dinner plans. I'd been planning this dinner all week. Slow-cooked short ribs, mashed potatoes from scratch, that one red wine sauce recipe I found buried in a forgotten food blog. It wasn't fancy, just something comforting I could throw together on my one afternoon off. I'd been looking forward to it. Not just the food, but the ritual of making something slowly, with care. You know, one of those meals that simmers on the stove and makes your whole apartment smell like a hug. My girlfriend Tara knew I was making it. I told her the day before, texted her about it that morning. She even sent a thumbs up emoji when I said, dinner should be ready by 7. So I get home around 6:30, excited. Tired, yeah. I'd picked up an extra shift, but still excited. I walk in, put my bag down, head toward the kitchen, and the pot is gone. At first, I thought maybe she moved it to the fridge or something, but no. The slow cooker was empty, clean, and sitting in the dish rack. My stomach dropped. Tara was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looking smug. I asked, hey, what happened to the food? She didn't even look up, just said, oh, I threw it out. Like she was talking about junk mail. I froze. You what? I wanted pizza, she said, stretching. That stuff smelled weird. Okay. Deep breath. I asked and calmly, why didn't you just wait or order something else for yourself? She rolled her eyes like I was the problem. Because you said we were eating together and I didn't want to wait. And you didn't answer when I texted, so I checked my phone. She texted me 20 minutes earlier. I was driving. Then she hit me with the real kicker. I just don't get why you're making a big deal out of this. It's just food. Then came the breaking point. She had the audacity to say, if you really cared, you'd get me pizza now instead of sulking. This woman threw away an entire meal I spent hours prepping, and now I was unsupportive for not immediately running back out the door to get her pizza. I told her flat out, I'm not getting you anything right now. I'm tired, and I spent my day off cooking for us. She scoffed. Wow, so you're just going to let me starve? Now I want to be clear. We had snacks in the kitchen, cereal, leftovers, even a frozen pizza in the freezer. She wasn't starving, she just wanted drama. And suddenly it hit me. This wasn't about dinner, it was about control. She didn't like that I did something without her input, that I had the audacity to make a plan and stick to it. She couldn't stand not being the center of it. This is where patience finally snapped. I told her, you know what? If this is how little respect you have for my time and effort, I think we need to rethink this relationship. She sat up, eyes wide. Wait, you're breaking up with me? Over food, and there it was. The classic manipulation move. Make it sound like I'm the crazy one. Like I'm the irrational person blowing things out of proportion. But it wasn't about the food. It was about what the food represented. I said, no, I'm breaking up with you because you don't respect me, or my time, or basic decency. She started crying, not the kind of crying that makes you second guess yourself, the kind that feels more like a performance, the kind of crying people do when they realize their control is slipping. I packed a bag and stayed at my brother's place for a few days. She texted me non-stop for a while, first angry, then apologetic, then angry again. I didn't respond. Eventually, she sent one last message that said, whatever. Enjoy eating alone, I did. And honestly, that first bowl of leftover short ribs I had in silence tasted better than anything we'd eaten together in weeks. The biggest red flag isn't a screaming match or a big betrayal. It's when someone casually disrespects your time and expects you to apologize for noticing. She really said, I'm hungry, and decided that was a good enough reason to commit dinner murder. At least she didn't charge me for the pizza, unlike this next friend. It was one of those evenings where everything feels off. I'd had a long day, the kind that stretches you thin, back-to-back meetings, traffic that makes you question your life choices, and one too many emails starting with just circling back. I wasn't in the mood to cook, And honestly, I just wanted to talk to someone who wasn't emailing me about Q3 deliverables. So I texted my friend Lily. We weren't best friends, but we'd been close for a few years. Hung out often, grabbed dinner, that kind of low maintenance friendship where you can drop by and it's never a big deal. I sent, "Hey, in your area. Want to hang for a bit?" She replied immediately, "Sure." I made dinner, come by. I didn't ask what she was making. I didn't think I had to. When I got there, she had pasta already on the stove, garlic bread in the oven. She was pouring herself a glass of wine and offered me one too. Honestly, it was cozy, chill, comforting. We ate, caught up on life, laughed about something stupid one of our mutual friends had posted. She told me about her new job. I vented about my boss. The food was solid too, simple but great. Before I left, I thanked her again. Said, "This hit the spot." Seriously, she smiled, hugged me, told me to drive safe. Then came the breaking point. The next morning, I woke up to a Venmo notification. Lily had requested $12 with the note, "Dinner." I stared at it like it was a mistake, like maybe she meant to send that to someone else. So I texted her, "Hey, did you mean to send me a dinner charge?" She replied, "Yeah, just trying to be more mindful with spending. Hope that's okay." I didn't respond right away. I genuinely didn't know how to respond. I mean, she invited me over. She offered dinner. There was no mention of splitting costs, no "let's chip in," just a "come over and eat." And now I owed her $12? Okay, I know what someone's probably thinking. It's just $12. Sure, but it wasn't about the money. It was the principle. If you want to split costs, cool. Just say so. But don't turn a casual hangout into a surprise invoice. That's like handing someone a glass of water and billing them for tap. So I asked, trying to keep it light, "Totally get wanting to watch expenses. Just wasn't expecting a charge for dinner you offered." She replied, "Well, I made enough for me, but since you ate, I figured it was fair." Okay. Wow. So not only did she frame it like I'd mooched off her, she made it clear that had I not shown up, that meal was hers alone. And here's where it gets absurd. Because when I didn't pay right away, not out of spite, I just genuinely needed time to think about how to respond, she followed up, "Hey, just a reminder to settle up." The emoji made it worse, like she was trying to soften the blow of nickel and diming me like a shady food truck owner. I paid it, just to be done with it. But I also stopped initiating any hangouts after that. The next few weeks were quiet. No texts from her, no random memes, no invites. I figured maybe she sensed the vibe had changed, or maybe she thought I was being petty. Eventually, she sent me a message. "Hey, haven't heard from you in a bit. Everything good?" I didn't want to ghost her, but I also didn't want to pretend nothing had happened. So I was honest. Yeah, just felt a little weird after the Venmo thing. I totally get watching money, but charging friends after the fact feels kind of transactional. She replied, "Wow. Okay, I was just trying to set boundaries." Then she unmatched me on every platform we were connected on: Instagram, Twitter, even Goodreads. So, I guess that was that. Sometimes friendships don't end in a fight. They just dissolve, slowly, awkwardly, under the weight of unspoken expectations. She probably thought I was cheap. I thought she was being weirdly calculating. And maybe we were both a little right. But in the end, I realized something. If being your friend comes with a price tag, I'd rather dine alone. She really turned pasta into a pay-per-view event. And sometimes it's not the price of food, it's the price of furniture. It all started with a couch cushion and one very unfortunate noise. I was hosting a small get-together. Nothing fancy, just a few friends, some drinks, casual vibes. It wasn't even a party. People were sitting around, chatting, watching TV. At one point, I came back from the kitchen with a plate of snacks and sat down on the couch. And I heard it. That sickening, plasticky crack you only hear when something expensive just died under your weight. I froze, lifted the cushion I just sat on, and there it was, a very slim, very shiny, and now very bent MacBook Air. My stomach dropped. I looked around, trying to figure out whose it was. That's when Danielle, a friend of a friend, someone I barely knew, gasped like she'd just watched her favorite character die in a show finale. "Oh my God, that's mine! You crushed it!" I apologized immediately. Like, hands up, no excuses. I genuinely hadn't seen it. The thing was thin enough to hide under a throw pillow, and no one warned me it was there. Still, I felt horrible. I told her right away, I'll pay for it. Just send me the receipt. That seemed to calm her down for like 10 minutes. The next morning, I get a text from Danielle. She says the model was $2,200 new, but I'll be needing $2,700 because I'm upgrading to the newer version. Hope that's okay. Hope that's okay? She wanted me to cover an upgrade. I read the text again to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Nope. She straight up Venmo requested me $2,700, like I'd pre-ordered her a new toy. So I replied, I'll absolutely cover the cost of replacing the same model, but I don't think it's fair to make me pay for an upgrade. Danielle was not pleased. She immediately called me cheap, said I had no idea how important that laptop was to her work, and if you'd broken my car, I wouldn't buy the same used model again. Then came the breaking point. She threatened to sue me. Like, actually take me to small claims court over the missing $500. Now look, I'm all for accountability. I broke the laptop. I was fully prepared to take responsibility for that. But this wasn't about accountability anymore. This was about leverage. She thought she could squeeze me, and I'd fold to avoid court. She really picked the wrong person. I told her, if you'd like to go to court, that's your right. I'm still offering to pay the value of the original model. Let me know. I thought maybe that would cool things down. Spoiler, it didn't. 2 weeks later, I got the court summons. She was suing me for full market value of the upgrade, plus inconvenience and data recovery fees, bringing the total to $3,100. I showed up to court with printed texts, proof of the laptop's original model and price, and even a screenshot of her saying, I'm upgrading. And the judge, he saw through it instantly. Danielle went on this whole emotional monologue about how the laptop was her lifeline and she'd been humiliated by the situation. The judge listened patiently, nodded a lot, and then completely ruled in my favor. He said, you're entitled to compensation for the item that was damaged, not a newer model and not extra fees you can't prove were necessary. He decided I owed her 50% of the actual repair cost, not replacement repair, because, in his words, both parties had a role in the negligence. Which, fair. I didn't check before sitting. She didn't tell anyone where she left a delicate $2,000 machine. So instead of paying $3,100, I paid $275. Done and dusted. And Danielle, she stormed out of the courtroom without saying a word. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't loud. It's watching someone walk into a courtroom with dollar signs in their eyes and walk out with nothing but parking validation. She really sued for an upgrade and left with a downgrade to her dignity. But not all courtroom drama ends with a win. Running a business isn't glamorous. People think it's all be your own boss and sipping lattes on your laptop. But the truth is, it's mostly problem solving, apologizing to angry customers, and trying not to scream into a filing cabinet at 2 a.m. And sometimes the biggest problems aren't even your competitors. They're on your payroll. So I run a small boutique. Nothing massive, just a well-loved spot in a cozy downtown strip with loyal regulars and more plants than inventory. It's the kind of place where people come in to browse, sip free tea, and tell you about their week. Enter Emily. Emily was hired part-time. Great resume, decent interview, seemed confident. And in retail, confident is gold. But confidence quickly turned into arrogance, and then just flat-out rudeness. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Everyone has off days, but Emily's off days were every day. She rolled in late constantly, always with an excuse. Traffic. My cat unplugged my alarm clock. My boyfriend made me cry. And look, I'm not heartless. If someone's going through stuff, I'll work with them. But she didn't want help. She wanted a free pass. Then came the customer complaints. One woman messaged me on Instagram saying Emily had told her, if you can't afford it, maybe this shop isn't for you. Another said Emily refused to check the stockroom because she was on break. My personal favorite, she told a tourist couple, we don't really do receipts. Just remember what you bought. That one almost broke me. So I sat her down for a formal warning, documented it, signed it, had the whole HR-friendly chat. She nodded along, fake smiled, and the next day showed up 25 minutes late, eating a bagel like she was on a food tour. Then came the breaking point. A regular, the sweetest older lady who buys hand-poured candles for her grandkids, came in visibly upset. Emily had apparently mocked her accent and told her she was reading the labels wrong. That was it. I fired her. Straight up. no sugarcoating. Told her her behavior was unacceptable and she wasn't a good fit. She didn't argue. She just said, "Fine. You'll regret this, honestly." I thought that was just ego talking. Until 2 weeks later, I got a letter. She was suing me for emotional distress. I laughed out loud when I opened it. Like a full choke laugh. Emotional trauma from being fired after documented misconduct? But it wasn't a joke. Her claim said the firing caused her debilitating anxiety and damaged her self-worth. She said I targeted her unfairly and created a hostile workplace because I once asked her to fold scarves in a condescending tone. Scarves. Scarves were the trauma trigger. This is where patience finally snapped. I had to hire a lawyer, file responses, dig through texts, emails, shift logs. It dragged on for 3 months. She even tried to bring character witnesses, her boyfriend and her roommate, who both looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. In court, she painted herself as a model employee, claimed I was intimidating, that I micromanaged her, and that the customer complaints were unverified rumors. My lawyer calmly walked the judge through the paper trail, the signed warnings, the timestamps, the security footage showing her napping in the storage room. Then came her pièce de résistance. She said my shop ruined her career. My lawyer simply asked, "Can you name any other job you've applied for since being let go?" She couldn't. The judge ruled in my favor, said there was no evidence of wrongful termination or workplace hostility, and that, while she may have felt embarrassed, that didn't qualify as trauma. She walked out like she'd been wronged by the universe. I walked out with $6,000 in legal fees and a renewed appreciation for background checks. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the bad guy, until the receipts show otherwise. Wow, she really folded scarves, then folded in court. Let's go from the courtroom to the cat room. This next one's technically a love story. My cat always knew something before I did. I used to joke that she had better instincts than most humans, including me. But I didn't realize just how true that was until the day she exposed my boyfriend as a liar. It started off small. You know how cats are, weird, twitchy, obsessed with routines. Mine, a big orange tabby named Miso, started acting strangely every time my boyfriend Ryan left the apartment. The second the door closed behind him, she'd bolt to the hallway closet. Not just in a curious, what's in there kind of way. She'd scratch at it, paw at the door, meow until I came to shoo her away. The first time I figured she was chasing a bug. Second time, maybe she thought her toys were in there. But it kept happening. Same closet, same timing, only when Ryan was gone. Then one night I decided to open the closet just to prove to myself it was empty. But it wasn't. At first glance it looked normal. Winter coats, my old duffel bag, some random boxes. But Miso jumped in and immediately started pawing at one of the upper shelves, way in the back. I reached up, moved the coats, and found a small black shoebox wedged behind the lining. Inside, a burner phone, love notes, and a box of condoms. My heart stopped. The phone wasn't even locked. I powered it on and it lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of messages, flirty photos, entire conversations with women I'd never heard of. One of them literally said, "Can't wait to see you again tonight, wink face." I felt like I'd swallowed a brick. And here's where it gets absurd, because this man, this idiot, had left an entire double life in my hallway closet, assuming I'd never open it. He didn't even password protect the phone. It was just sitting there, one poor swipe away from being exposed by a very judgmental tabby cat. I sat on the floor for maybe 10 minutes, just holding the phone, trying to wrap my head around it. Then I started pulling out more from the box. Receipts for hotel rooms, notes that said last night was amazing. One of them had my name crossed out on a card and another woman's written in. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming, because when Ryan got home, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just calmly asked, "Hey, what's in the hallway closet?" He stiffened. "Just storage stuff." I nodded. "You should go check." He went over, opened the door, looked up at the shelf, and froze. When he turned around, his face was pale. I held up the burner phone. "Looking for this?" He didn't say a word, just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Then I said, "Miso found it." And that's when he actually tried to blame the cat. "I wasn't hiding anything. I just didn't want your cat to knock it over." "Sir, be serious." I asked him how long it had been going on. He admitted to a few months, but judging by the messages, it was more like a year. And it wasn't just one person. There were 4 different women in the messages, all thinking they were his only one. That's when everything unraveled. Turns out he had a separate apartment lease under a fake name. He was using my place as his stable home base and sleeping around whenever he worked late. He even used the phrase polyamorous energy, as if that made this not cheating. I kicked him out on the spot, told him he had 10 minutes to grab what he needed, and the rest would be on the curb by morning. He tried to cry, said he loved me the most and didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't even flinch. Miso sat next to me on the couch, tail flicking like a tiny orange judge. The best part? 2 of the girls he was seeing found my Instagram through mutual tags and messaged me. Turns out they thought they were the only ones too. We had a mini support group going for a while, comparing timelines and realizing just how badly he'd tangled himself in his own lies. Sometimes the cat doesn't just knock things off shelves, she knocks over entire lives. I changed the locks, threw out the box, gave Miso extra treats and told her she was officially the chief of security in the apartment. Sometimes the universe gives you a sign. Other times it sends a 4-legged whistleblower with a tail. You'd think cheating would be the worst betrayal, until your birthday gets forgotten entirely. So I turned 21 alone. And no, not because I wanted a quiet night in, or because I hate attention. I love birthdays, not in a throw me a surprise party with 50 people way, but in a let's go out, make memories, have a little fun kind of way. I'd been looking forward to this one especially, you know, the big 21st. First legal drink, no more fake IDs, real champagne instead of gas station sparkling wine, that sort of thing. My boyfriend Jake knew how important it was to me. I'd been hinting at it for weeks, dropping not so subtle reminders like, hey, we should make a plan, and I'm thinking dinner and maybe a rooftop bar. He nodded along, said, yeah, totally, and then promptly did absolutely nothing. The day before my birthday, I asked if he wanted to go out after work. He shrugged and said, I might be seeing the guys, but we'll see. I laughed, thought it was a joke. It wasn't. The next day, my actual birthday, I woke up to no text, no call, no happy birthday post, nothing. I figured maybe he was planning something secretly, like maybe he was trying to be mysterious. Maybe he was going to surprise me at dinner. Hope is a dangerous thing. I waited until 2 p.m. before texting. Hey, what's the plan for tonight? He replied, oh shoot, today's the 12th? I made plans with the guys to watch the game. Can we do something this weekend? That was it. That was the message. No emoji, no happy birthday, no apology. Just casually letting me know that, again. Because yes, this had happened the year before too. He forgot, but that wasn't even the worst part. Because a few hours later, he posted an Instagram story of him out at a bar with his friends, holding up drinks, laughing, clearly not thinking about me for even a second. I watched it from my couch, alone, eating Thai takeout. No candles, no drinks, no plans, just me, my cat, and a reminder that I was apparently less memorable than a basketball game. I waited until midnight, and then I sent a text. Hope the game was fun. We're done. He didn't reply right away. At around 3 a.m., he sent, wait, what? Are you serious? I didn't answer. Because here's the thing, birthdays aren't about gifts or grand gestures. They're about effort, remembering, showing someone they matter. And if someone can't do that once a year, especially after forgetting it the year before, what are the odds they'll show up when it really counts? Then came the backpedaling. The next morning, he called 3 times in a row, left a voicemail that started with, okay, I admit I forgot, and somehow ended with, but you could have reminded me again. Sure, because nothing says I love you like blaming someone for not reminding you of their birthday enough. He showed up at my apartment later that week with a grocery store cake and a 6-pack of hard seltzer. Said, we can still celebrate, right? I told him you already did, just not with me. Sometimes the most powerful breakup isn't a scream or a scene. It's the quiet decision to stop showing up for someone who never showed up for you. He really gave forgotten birthday energy and expected bonus points for a late apology cake. But not all birthdays are forgotten. Some are just too well attended. Our daughter's 6th birthday was supposed to be simple. Just backyard balloons, a rented bounce house, some cupcakes, and way too many glittery decorations that I'd end up vacuuming out of the grass for weeks. She wanted a unicorn theme, and I was ready to go all in. I'd prepped for days. My husband Nate helped hang streamers and blow up inflatable rainbows, and even wore a matching pastel birthday dad shirt I got him off Etsy. The plan was solid. The first guests started arriving. A few neighborhood kids, cousins, grandparents, all normal. Then, as I'm laying out the goodie bags, I hear Nate's voice shift. It wasn't angry, just stiff. I turn around and guess who's standing at our fence like she's strolling into a casual Sunday brunch. His ex-wife. Uninvited, unannounced, unbothered. Let me clarify. I have no issue with co-parenting. In fact, I encouraged Nate to stay civil for the sake of their son, my stepson, who's 11 and also invited to the party. But this wasn't co-parenting. This was crashing. She walks in without waiting for anyone to say, "Come in," gives me a tight-lipped "hi," and immediately starts rearranging things. I watched, stunned, as she moved the drink station to better flow, told a neighbor's kid to please use a napkin, and pulled Nate aside to whisper something in his ear. At that point, I'm just standing there like, is this a prank? Did I miss a memo? Is this her party now? But that wasn't even the worst part, because after the cake was cut, she stood up and clapped to get everyone's attention, like a substitute teacher in a chaotic classroom. Then she starts giving a mini speech about how time flies and how our daughter is growing up so fast. Our daughter. I'm sorry, whose daughter? I walked over and, trying to keep it polite, said, "Thanks for coming, but this isn't really your event to host." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I just wanted it to feel more structured. You were kind of just letting the kids run wild." At that point, I fully dropped the passive and switched to aggressive. I told her she had two options: enjoy the party like a guest or leave. She rolled her eyes and said, "This is why co-parenting is so hard." I wasn't even the one co-parenting her. I was just trying to serve cupcakes. Then came the breaking point. She tried to take over the presents, like physically took the scissors from my hand while I was helping our daughter open her gifts, and said, "Here, I'll do it. You're struggling." That's when Nate finally stepped in. Full dad mode. He told her calmly but firmly, "You weren't invited and now you're creating stress. You need to go." She scoffed, called me territorial, and left in a huff, but not before muttering something about how this party wasn't even that cute anyway. Which, girl, you drank 3 juice boxes. Relax, we thought it was over. But the next morning, we woke up to a Facebook post, a long one, about how some stepmoms just can't handle real moms being involved, and how she was pushed out of her child's life for no reason. No names, but it was obvious. People started commenting, taking sides, asking vague questions, sending DMs. Family drama exploded overnight like one of those dollar store confetti poppers. Cheap, messy, and impossible to clean up. I stayed quiet online, but Nate posted a short, pointed reply. "If anyone has questions about what really happened, feel free to message me directly." No one did, and just like that, she fizzled back into silence. Sometimes people aren't looking to co-parent. They're looking to perform, and when the audience doesn't clap, they storm off stage. She really turned a 6-year-old's party into a soap opera and still didn't get the last word. Sometimes the ex ruins the party, sometimes the mom ruins the wedding. Weddings are supposed to bring people together. At least that's the sales pitch. Love, unity, new beginnings. But in my case, it just brought out everyone's worst main character energy, especially my mum. My fiancé and I had been planning our wedding for over a year. It was going to be outdoors, small but elegant, with good food, better music, and zero drama. I'd picked out my groomsmen early, and when it came time to choose my best man, the choice was obvious: my best friend, Daniel. We'd been through everything together since high school. Bad breakups, worse apartments, and that one time we almost got banned from an Applebee's. He was family in every way that mattered, but apparently not in every way. When my mum found out, she was furious, and not just disappointed, angry. She cornered me during a casual lunch and said, "So, you're really picking a friend over your own brother?" I blinked. "Stepbrother," I corrected. That was the beginning of the spiral. My stepbrother Alan and I are civil. He's fine, not cruel, not close. We didn't grow up together. He moved in when I was already 17, and we never really clicked. Different interests, different personalities, He once referred to Daniel as that guy who peaked in high school. So, yeah, not my first pick for standing beside me at the altar. But that wasn't even the worst part. My mom issued an ultimatum. She told me, dead serious, if Alan isn't your best man, I'm not coming to your wedding. I laughed. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. She doubled down. Said it would be disrespectful to the family, that I was playing favorites, and that Daniel has no blood ties. She even tried to guilt trip me by saying, do you really want pictures of your wedding day without your mother in them? The manipulation was Olympic level. I tried to reason with her, told her it wasn't about who was family on paper. It was about who showed up, who knew me best, who supported me through everything. Daniel had earned that spot. Alan had shown up to my graduation 3 hours late and left before my name was called. She didn't care. Then came the breaking point. My mum called my fiancée, told her she was worried I was too loyal to my friends, and said that maybe we were rushing into marriage if I couldn't see what mattered. That's when I finally snapped. I told her, clearly calmly, that I wasn't changing my mind. Daniel would be my best man. Alan could still be in the wedding party if he wanted. But this wasn't up for debate. She said, then I guess we'll see if you're really willing to go through with this without half your family. I said, guess we will. And we did. Half my family didn't show up, mom included. My stepdad made an excuse about a sudden work thing. Alan sent a 2-line text the morning of the wedding saying, good luck, bro. And that was it. And you know what? The wedding still slapped. Daniel gave a speech that had everyone laughing and tearing up. The dance floor was packed all night. My fiancée looked like an actual goddess, and I've never felt more surrounded by chosen family than I did that night. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the villain to people who expect to control you. But honestly, let them think that. The people who showed up were the ones who mattered. She really said, pick my son or I'll skip your entire wedding, and then followed through. Weddings seem cursed lately, especially when your fiancé isn't the one showing up. I don't usually make big plans for my birthday. I'm not the throw a party with 50 people type. More like, let's grab brunch, keep it low-key, vibe with good people and French toast. But this year I decided to invite someone a little special. Her name was Eliza. We'd been talking off and on for a while, friends with undeniable flirt energy. Nothing official, but the kind of dynamic where your heart beats a little faster when her name pops up on your phone. So when she said she was totally down to meet up for birthday brunch, I was kind of hyped. I picked the spot, a little cafe I loved with outdoor seating and ridiculously good mimosas. Told her the time, sent the address, and even shaved. That's how you know I was serious. She texted, on my way, right on time. I grabbed a table, ordered a coffee to wait, and then I saw her walk up with a guy. At first I thought, oh, maybe she ran into someone she knows. But no. She smiled, waved at me and said, this is Aaron. I said, hey? Aaron sat down next to her like this was a group hang. Eliza didn't even introduce me beyond, this is my friend. Then she launched into a conversation with Aaron like I wasn't even there. They were laughing, talking about mutual friends, clearly vibing. I just sat there, sipping my coffee, wondering if I'd blacked out and invited the wrong person to my own birthday. But that wasn't even the worst part. She didn't just bring a Tinder date to my birthday brunch. She ignored me the entire time. I tried jumping into the conversation once or twice, made a comment about the food. They smiled politely and kept talking. When the server came, Eliza ordered a matcha latte for the table, and Aaron said, no thanks, I'll just get the steak hash. I looked at her. She shrugged and said, oh, by the way, I'm starving. Hope that's cool. I wanted to disappear into the waffles. I didn't want to be dramatic, so I stayed polite, finished my food, and made some light conversation with the waiter. Eliza and Aaron barely noticed when I excused myself to the bathroom for 5 minutes just to breathe. Then came the breaking point. Check arrives. Aaron looks at it, chuckles, and says, you got this, birthday boy. Eliza laughs, and goes, kidding? We'll Venmo you later. I didn't even blink. Just paid, tipped generously out of sheer survival instinct, and said, I'm gonna head out. Thanks for coming. Eliza gave me a half hug. Aaron said, good meeting you, bro. Brother. That night, I get a text from Eliza. You were kinda weird today. Everything okay? I stared at it like it was in another language. I didn't even reply. I just blocked her. No dramatic exit, no angry paragraph. Just blocked. Sometimes the clearest red flag doesn't need a confrontation. It just needs a quiet door closed behind it. At least she didn't demand $17 for pancakes. Unlike the next entitled friend, I always thought home ownership would come with peace. You know, mowing your lawn on Saturday mornings, waving at neighbors from the porch, maybe even joining a local Facebook group to complain about raccoons in the trash. But what I didn't expect was that paint color would be the hill someone chose to die on. My house is a small 1950s bungalow in a quiet, no HOA neighborhood. That part's important. No HOA. Which means no one can legally tell you what color to paint your house, how tall your grass should be, or whether or not your Christmas lights are still up in February. Freedom, baby. I'd been wanting to repaint for a while. The old beige siding was peeling, and honestly, beige is soul-crushing. I wanted something warm, something happy. So after a few swatches and a long internal debate, I chose peach, like a soft pastel peach. Cheerful, not neon. Somewhere between sunrise in spring and Georgia on my mind. I loved it. My friends loved it. Even the mailman said it made him smile. But my next-door neighbor absolutely lost his mind. His name's Greg. Retired, wears white New Balance sneakers, and has the energy of someone who has opinions about the correct way to edge a lawn. I didn't even know he cared that much about my house until the first coat went up. He stood in his driveway, arms crossed, and said, "That better be primer." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. "It's peach," I said, "like I told you last week." Greg frowned. "It's going to bring down the property value for the whole block." I blinked. "Greg, we don't have an HOA." He said, "Well, we have standards." "Oh, do we?" I shrugged it off, thought maybe he was just being dramatic. But that wasn't even the worst part, because a few days later I started getting visits. First, a random woman rang my doorbell and said she was from the neighborhood association. I politely informed her that such an association didn't exist. She tried to hand me a pamphlet that looked like it was printed at a Staples in 2006, saying, "We try to maintain a traditional aesthetic." It had clip art on it. Clip art. Then came the friendly visits. People I'd never spoken to before, suddenly showing up while I was gardening to say things like, "That's a bold color choice," or "Have you considered something more neutral?" Someone even left a paint swatch card in my mailbox. No note, just a bare sample labeled Classic Taupe. I started to connect the dots. Greg was recruiting. I confronted him, asked him flat out if he was behind it. He didn't deny it, said, "I'm trying to keep this street respectable. You painting your house like a cupcake doesn't help." That's when everything unraveled, because at that point I wasn't even mad. I was entertained. I started putting out even more pastel touches, painted my front door a soft mint, added a hanging planter with pink flowers, put up a welcome mat that said "sweet as a peach." Greg lost it. He started mowing right up to the edge of my lawn with extra aggression. Then he began calling the city about code violations, claimed my paint was blinding and potentially reflective. Yes, reflective. As if peach-colored paint was a traffic hazard. The city sent someone out who looked around, nodded, and left. No violations, no fines, nothing they could do. Greg cornered me again a week later and said, "You should really consider moving. This isn't the kind of neighborhood for that look." I smiled, leaned on the fence, and said, "Then you should consider moving." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "Excuse me?" I said, "You clearly hate living next to me, and I'm not changing a thing. So if anyone's going to move, maybe it should be the guy who thinks he owns the whole block." Greg stormed off. Since then, he's escalated. He put up taller hedges, built a small privacy wall on his side of the fence, and now blasts talk radio in his backyard at full volume. But me, I'm thriving, sitting on my peach porch with a pink lemonade, waving at everyone who does love the color. Because here's the thing. People like Greg don't want community. They want control. And when they realize you're not playing their game, they sulk. Loudly. Sometimes the best revenge is just existing loudly and legally, right where they can see you. He really tried to gatekeep an entire street because he hated one warm-toned house. But the worst neighbors aren't nosy. They're stealthy and hungry. It started with my oat milk. Specifically, it started disappearing. Not like, "Oh, I used more than I thought." Number? Like, gone. One day, it's a full carton. The next, a sad half-inch left at the bottom. like it had evaporated out of spite. Now I live in a shared apartment, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1 fridge. It's me, Becca, and Talia. We all signed the lease together, and at first it was fine. We labeled our stuff, split chores, and even watched trashy reality shows together every Thursday night. Civilized roommate harmony. But then, food started vanishing. Not just oat milk, my hummus. The leftover pad thai I labeled in Sharpie. The very last slice of cheesecake I was saving for a bad day. Gone. No note, no oops, sorry, no text. Just silent, sneaky theft. I brought it up during a casual kitchen chat. Hey, I said, trying to sound cool and not like I was spiraling over missing lentil soup. Anyone seen my leftovers from Tuesday? Becca looked up from her phone and said, Oh no, did they go bad? Talia blinked. What leftovers? Which? Plausible deniability, sure. Maybe I was wrong once or twice. Maybe I'd forgotten I finished something. But this kept happening. Enough that I started marking the levels on jars with a pen. Enough that I knew someone was playing dumb. But that wasn't even the worst part, because one day I opened my almond butter, and it looked the same, but the texture was off, too runny, weirdly sweet. I turned the jar around, different brand, completely different jar. That's when I realized whoever was eating my food wasn't just stealing it. They were replacing it with knockoff versions. You know how much effort that takes? So I did what any mildly unhinged, justice-seeking millennial would do. I bought a fridge cam. It's this tiny motion-sensing camera meant for baby monitors or pets. I nestled it behind the pickle jar and synced it to my phone. Set it to record when there's movement between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. because that's when the hauntings usually occurred. First night, nothing. Second night, Becca grabbing water. Third night, Talia, 2:14 a.m., in pajama pants and an oversized hoodie, standing in front of the fridge with a spoon. She took my yogurt, the expensive Greek one with the honey on the side, opened it, stirred it, tasted it, made a face, and put it back. Then pulled out my labeled leftovers, sniffed them, smiled, and ate the entire thing standing up. Not a care in the world. But that wasn't even the breaking point. The next night, I caught her replacing my oat milk. She took my half-empty carton, poured it down the sink, then pulled out a full one from her tote bag. Same brand, but expired by 3 weeks, and then smiled at the camera. She knew. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming, because I was mad, but not just vent in a group chat mad. I wanted receipts, so I stitched together a compilation of the clips. Nothing dramatic, no narration, just timestamps, zoom-ins, and slow-mo spoons. And then I posted it on Reddit. Specifically on r/roommate horror stories. It blew up overnight. Comments pouring in. She smiled at the camera like a Bond villain. That's not theft, that's culinary gaslighting. She replaced the oat milk like she was resetting a trap. And then the video spread. I never tagged her, never said her name. But somehow, someone recognized her in the comments. Her ex from college, actually. Said, not surprised. She used to steal my coffee and replace it with instant. Talia found the post the next day. She slammed into the apartment like a storm cloud and yelled, You spied on me? I just said, You replaced my yogurt with frozen custard, Talia. Who does that? She said I violated her privacy. I said she violated my lunch. She threatened to move out. I said, Great. Just don't take my groceries on the way out. She moved out that weekend. Left a sticky note on the fridge that said, Good luck finding roommates who aren't paranoid. I taped it to the camera. Sometimes the best revenge is literally letting people expose themselves. She really committed to oat milk sabotage like it was a covert operation. And some people don't steal food. They steal freedom. It started as a joke. At least I thought it was a joke when my mum brought it up over dinner. We were sitting at the table, me, my mum, and my dad, eating pasta and talking about how hot it's been. She casually says, Well, at least you got good use out of the pool. You'll be paying off your half for a while. I blinked. My half? She smiled like it was cute. Well, it was your birthday present, remember? It's only fair now. Rewind 4 years. I was 12 and my parents surprised me with a backyard pool. Not an inflatable one, a real in-ground pool. Blue tile, nice deck, lounge chairs, the whole thing. I cried. Not because I asked for it, I didn't. but because I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was pitched as a family upgrade, something we could all enjoy. At no point did they say, "This is a debt trap we're setting for your 16-year-old self." I laughed nervously and said, "You're kidding, right?" My dad chimed in, "It was $30,000. You've got a job now. It's time to start paying some of it back." I was stunned. I work part-time at a bookstore. I make minimum wage. My parents don't struggle financially. We live in a nice house. They have new cars. My dad golfs. We are not broke. I said, "You're asking me to pay for something you chose to buy that I had no say in?" My mom's tone shifted. "It was your present. We could have used that money for something else," I said. I was 12. That's when everything unraveled. Because they weren't joking. They sat me down with a printout of the pool's original invoice. Highlighted the total, $29,843.12. My half, $14,921.56. They said they'd waive interest if I made monthly payments, like I was financing a used Toyota or something. I refused, point blank. I told them I never agreed to any of this, and I wasn't paying, so they started punishing me. First, they took my phone, said if I wasn't responsible enough to contribute to the family, I didn't need luxuries. Then they took my car, which, yes, they technically paid for, but it was supposed to be mine for getting straight A's. Next, they locked down my bank account. My paychecks from work were going into a joint teen account, and my mom removed access. "Until we figure out your payment plan," she said. That's when I snapped. I called my aunt. She lives one town over and has always been the cool relative. No kids, 2 cats, lots of wine and sarcasm. I told her everything. She said, "Pack a bag." I moved in the next night, and my parents were furious. They called me ungrateful, said I was abandoning the family over a little accountability, said I was running away from adult responsibility. Meanwhile, I was a teenager just trying to buy snacks with my own money without being extorted over pool debt. A few days after I left, they showed up at my aunt's house, demanded she send me home. She refused, said I was safer there. And that's when things went from bad to unhinged. My mom posted on Facebook. She made a dramatic public post about raising entitled children in a thankless world, claimed she and my dad sacrificed so much to give me a beautiful childhood, and now I was refusing to repay a small gesture of love. People in the comments went wild. Some sided with her, mostly her wine group friends, but most, they were horrified. I stayed quiet, didn't post anything, but my best friend did. She commented, "You mean the pool you said was your dream for years? The one you posted about non-stop for months before her birthday?" Then she posted screenshots. Old posts from my mum's Facebook where she gushed about finally getting the dream backyard oasis I've always wanted. Literally never mentioned it being for me. The tide turned fast, and suddenly the whole plan fell apart. My parents started getting messages. People asked why they were treating their daughter like a bank. Some of their friends, the ones with actual kids, unfriended them. My mum deleted the post, then texted me, "I hope you're happy." I replied, "I'm peaceful. That's better." And honestly, I am. My aunt's been amazing. She helped me open my own account and transfer my paychecks. We worked with HR to stop my parents from touching my money. And for the first time in months, I'm not afraid to eat cereal without being told I owe the house. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who think love is transactional. Thanks for your patience. Here is the fully expanded version of Chapter 17, He Catfished Me for Months, and It Was My Sister's Ex. Written in the requested format and tone. So I met Alex on a language exchange app. We were both trying to brush up on our French, and honestly, I wasn't expecting anything serious. But he was charming, funny, and kind of poetic in this weirdly sincere way. Not cringe, just effortlessly good at knowing what to say, which, in hindsight, should have been my first red flag. We started chatting daily, voice messages, inside jokes. He called me Papillon. We talked about our lives, our dreams, the things we hated about our jobs. Classic slow burn situationship vibes. And when he finally sent me a selfie, I thought, okay, wow, jackpot. Handsome, scruffy, kind eyes. I never questioned it. We never FaceTimed, but he always had excuses. Bad Wi-Fi, anxiety, weird roommates. I didn't push it. I've been socially anxious too. I get it. But things slowly started to go off. He made little jabs about my outfits when I posted on Instagram. Said things like, "You don't need to dress like that to get attention." Subtle, controlling stuff that felt like concern until I stepped back and realized he was trying to reshape me. Then came the breaking point. I posted a story from my sister's housewarming party. She was introducing us to her new boyfriend. I'd never met him before, she'd been dating him secretly for a while. I walk in, shake hands with the guy, and my brain just short circuits. It's Alex. Same voice, same build, same cadence, same voice. But the face, completely different. I was frozen. I excused myself, ran to the bathroom, and scrolled back through our messages. The Alex I'd been talking to was using stock model level photos, generic enough to not be reverse image searched easily, but not the man I'd just met in real life. I confronted him later that night through chat. His first response? "You're not supposed to know yet." Yep, not even denial. He then proudly admitted it. Said he had been experimenting with catfishing to prove how fake women are. Claimed I was too shallow to love the real him and that I only liked him for his looks. I asked, "Then why did you never give me the chance to know the real you?" And he said, "Because women never want the truth." My hands were shaking. I couldn't believe the sheer audacity. He'd been using a fake identity to manipulate me for months, and somehow I was the problem? This is where patience finally snapped. I took screenshots, every single message, every picture, every voice note. I compiled it all into a neat little folder titled Exhibit A, How Not to Be a Human. Then I did what any woman in 2025 with a decent Wi-Fi signal and a rage-fueled sense of justice would do. I made a TikTok. I blurred my name, but not his. Laid everything out. Showed his fake profile. Showed the real guy, my sister's ex, and explained how he built a whole persona to lure women into exposing themselves. It blew up. Over 300,000 views in 24 hours. But that wasn't even the worst part for him. Turns out he worked as a junior counselor at a mental health nonprofit. I sent the screenshots directly to their HR department, along with a very calm, very professional email. I didn't have to add anything spicy. His own words were damning enough. He was fired 3 days later, and when he tried to contact me again, I sent a single response. Papillon's gone. Try therapy. Then I blocked him everywhere. The last I heard, he tried to get back with my sister, which, in the most beautiful twist of karma, she also knew about the TikTok. She printed the screenshots and mailed them to his mum. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone enough rope to hang themselves, and the way he tied the knot, with a fake French accent and a borrowed face, unreal. Now let's end this descent into chaos with one last twist. A breakup so passive-aggressive it could have been a prank. They really tried to invoice her for childhood memories. And some people don't just steal money, they steal your sense of reality. He told me to sit down for something important. I thought maybe he was going to propose, or confess something awful. I didn't expect him to dim the lights, turn on the TV, and connect his laptop like he was about to pitch me a startup. Instead, a bright blue slide appeared on the screen titled, "Why We're Not Compatible, A Logical Breakdown." I laughed, because I genuinely thought it was a joke. But nope. Slide 2. A table of contents. There were chapters. Chapters. I asked, "Is this serious?" He just nodded and clicked to the next slide. Slide 3. Lifestyle conflicts. Bullet points included, "You don't like hiking, you drink almond milk, and, I quote, you hate Lord of the Rings, which is not only a red flag, but also a tragedy that one had a GIF of Gandalf shaking his head in disappointment." Slide 4. Communication gaps. Apparently, I interrupt too much during debates. I refuse to watch his favorite YouTubers, and I once said the MCU is mid. He called that one a foundational betrayal, but that wasn't even the worst part. Slide 5 was titled, Restaurant Etiquette. He deadass accused me of being mildly rude to wait staff. I asked what that meant, and then he said, "Remember that time in 2022 when you said, 'I'll just have the chicken,' without making eye contact?" I couldn't believe it. I said, "Are you breaking up with me because I didn't flirt with a waiter 2 years ago?" He clicked again. Slide 6. hobbies you mock. Apparently, I belittle his Warhammer collection, sigh during chess matches, and don't respect his Lego architecture builds. The last one included a photo of the Eiffel Tower he built and a text bubble from me saying, "Cool, now what?" Then came the breaking point. Slide 10 was literally just vibes. Just that. One word, no explanation, one big font, black background. I was speechless. I looked at him and asked, "Do you want to have a real conversation?" And he said, "That's what this is." He was so calm, like he thought this was respectful. Structured, like I should be grateful he didn't just ghost me. But it kept going. He had a timeline. Slide 14 predicted we'd inevitably break up in October 2025, citing emotional incompatibility curves and something called a shared growth plateau. I wish I were kidding. He had a graph showing our happiness slope in relation to shared Spotify playlists. And I kid you not, there was a statistical dip the week I deleted Taylor Swift's Folklore. I asked, "Is this a therapy project gone rogue?" He said, "I just thought you deserved clarity." This is where patience finally snapped. I stood up, grabbed the remote, and turned the TV off mid-slide. He started to say, "Wait, I wasn't done." I said, "Neither was I, but I don't need a bullet point to know this is over." Then I left. He later emailed me the presentation as a PDF. The subject line was, "Foreclosure." The final slide said, "Good luck out there," with a winky face emoji. The arrogance was almost impressive. A few friends said I should post it, and I did. I shared the whole thing online anonymously, and it went viral in less than a day. The comments were split between "this man is unhinged" and "okay, but I want to date him." That was weird. Anyway, I'm now in therapy unpacking why I dated a man who PowerPointed me out of his life like a quarterly report. Sometimes being the reasonable person in an unreasonable situation makes you look like the bad guy. And that, my friends, is all the chaos we can handle today. If you've made it this far, you're either a Reddit drama detective or just here for the emotional roller coaster. Either way, thank you. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, never ignore the cat. They always know.